My name is Maria Norman, and I'm an artist, filmmaker, drag performer, costume maker, priestess of nature, and independent researcher. I research subjects and persons from the art, dance, and entertainment world of the so called La Belle Époque. The time span roughly between 1871 and 1914. In this presentation, I show can-can dancers who are only known by their nickname, if even that. I assure you, this will be very nerdy and very, very niche. This is quite possibly the world's most complete and correct identification document of old Moulin Rouge dancers. At least that has been my ambition and aspiration. My time period of focus is 1889 to 1903, before the Moulin Rouge was turned into a theatre. And I'm not including these more well-known can-can dancers. I've only added their lesser-known nicknames to my list, if I found any. There does exist more info about these individuals, at least enough to make presentations about each and every one of them. I'm also not including older can-can dancers like Rigol Bosch and Celeste Mogador. This presentation will be structured somewhat like this. The introduction, this part that I'm currently doing. Dancers with names and photos and some info. Male can-can dancers. Yes, indeed. Dancers with names and a photo, but not much info or any info. Toulouse-Lautrec's art, which depicts some known and some unknown dancers. And some info about Nini's can-can school. Unknown dancers, singles and groups, and at the end, the complete list of 203 plus nicknames and sources. Yeah, my sources, which I show here in the beginning this time, and at the end. I've used my very own collection of books on Toulouse-Lautrec and La Belle Époque subjects. And this presentation includes a lot of quotes from the book Parisian, a study of Parisian morals. It's a kind of 1890s guidebook to dance halls, and it contains photos and descriptions of dancers, some not found elsewhere. I will also say that we have very few testimonies from the dancers themselves. It's pretty much only Jane Avril and Lagolu who has left some sort of memoirs behind. And here are some of my sources from digital archives and useful websites, as well as my everlasting gratitude to the artist, singer, and guide Lisette Pires, and Will Visconti, author of the excellent book Beyond the Moulin Rouge, The Life and Legacy of Lagolu. A complete list of sources and thank yous will be found at the end. And here's something which is important to keep in mind. The can-can was also known as the chahout or the quadrille, and under different names such as quadrille réaliste, quadrille naturaliste, even quadrille excentrique, or quadrille incohérent. It's important to keep in mind that there is a version of can-can slash chahout which was a couples dance, like a duo dance. So two couples, male female or four females, would like battle dance each other. And the can-can and chahout had elements of improvisation in it. So the row of dancing women of the same height, wears the same type costume, performing the same synced choreography, didn't exist at this time. My method for finding the dancers' nicknames. I've basically written down all the nicknames I've come across on lists like this one, and nicknames in the previously mentioned sources. I've collected photos and articles digitally for the past 23 years and occasionally on site in Parisian archives. And bear in mind, many of the dancers performed at other venues in Paris, in France, or other countries. So the presentation isn't solely about Moulin Rouge dancers, even though it's easier to find information by searching for that word. Because the place was and is so friggin' famous. And yeah, stereo photos like this one, where the nicknames are noted, has helped immensely. Sometimes I find names at the back of such photos. And yeah, stereo view is a kind of ancient form of virtual reality. You put photos into holders like this one, and you adjust it, and the photo becomes 3D-ish. So yeah, stereo photos like the previous one has helped me identify persons in this photo, which I've been staring at for the past 20 years or so, thinking, will I ever find out who all but two of them are? And now for a little bit of bragging time. The men in the photo were not identified. They're hard to see because everything just looks like a kind of porridge made out of people. But I managed to identify them, and we will get back to them later. But this is what I mean when I say that the can-can dancers weren't a row of samey dressed women, um, and yeah, that they were more individuals who had their own style and temperament. A note on the nicknames. Who nicknamed them and why? Jane Averill writes that the Moulin Rouge boss Seidler wanted to give her a nickname, and that he did, but she refused it. But he used it despite her refusal. And her colleagues gave her a nickname, Crazy Jane. Her actual chosen nickname was, yeah, chosen by herself. The English form of her actual name, Jeanne, and April, her favorite month. Other dancers like Grille de Go, means sewer or gutter grate. She got her nickname from an older man who said that the space between her teeth made her mouth look like a sewer grate. And the nicknames and or stage names was a way to conceal their actual identities, as their dancing and lifestyle was looked down upon. And it was a way to characterize them, like kind of brand them and market them. And I won't go into belly dancers or Tunisian dancers, but I want to recognize that they existed as well and performed at the Moulin Rouge. And it's impossible to find all persons who performed at the Moulin Rouge during the years 1889 to 1903. There were, yeah, these Tunisian style dancers, and there were performers on their summer outdoor stage, and there was ballroom dancers. I want to comment on photos like this one. It's labeled Moulin Rouge, and it has a performer's name. And they are very lovely, and they are very popular online. But they fall out of my focus period because they are from after 1903. Someone who does fall into my time period of focus is in fact John Lind, the boy from Karlskrona, Sweden, who became a female impersonator and world sensation, but almost forgotten in Sweden. In 1901, he performed at the Moulin Rouge, and the press writes that he performed under the male pseudonym John Lind. They didn't get that this Viennese danseuse was in fact a man, and that the regulars of the Moulin Rouge, they loved his performance. But I won't go into performers like him either. Well, I kind of did a bit now, didn't I? Well, he wasn't a can-can dancer. They are the focus of this presentation. And a final note before we start, I promise. The following presentation contains outdated language, misogynist outdated language, from contemporary sources. I'm looking at you, Maurice Delsol. And old modes of writing, and speaking about women, or people in general, actually. There will be mention of sex work, But the text that I have included are many times all the info on the dancers there is at all. So, let's start. Let's start with Margot, who is one of the dancers that I have the most photos of. And yeah, the little red mill in the upper right corner indicates that I'm as sure as I can be that I've linked the correct nickname and photo to the right person. Although it could be wrong, as has happened many times, so it means I could be wrong in this presentation. But I've tried to only label the ones that I am as sure of as you can be. The photo on the right has the name Margot under it, and by comparing it, I can find her in other photos. I can say that this funny image on the left is of her. Margot has very distinctive features, so she is easily recognizable. Her name could possibly allude to Queen Margot, the novel from 1845 by Alexandre Dumas the Older. Or it was her actual name. One source states that she was also nicknamed the Joker. The Moulin Rouge is the symbol of Gallic gaiety. Rayon d'Or, Nana la Sauterelle, La Môme Fromage, Jeanne la Folle, Margot la Brune, and other lesser-known princesses of rowdiness. It's a mystery why so many photos survive of some dancers, but not others. And Margot and her signature look is more easy to identify. And this dress is fantastic. I believe it's decorated with removable flowers made of fabric, as the straps on the right image has flowers adorned to them. There is very little info on Margot, but there's this. Margot, a typical Spanish woman, generally faces some novice whose sole ambition it is to one day equal her elders in their splits. Margot can teach her art because she knows it inside out, and would suitably play the role of a corypheus, leader of a chorus, in an opera ballet. Very inconstant, constantly sailing from Cythera to Lesbos, she's continually seeking a new conquest. God, what a consummation she makes of it, without seeming to. I don't know what being a typical Spanish woman means, if she was from Spain, or this is some sort of innuendo. The text does acknowledge the fact that she was a quite skilled dancer, and she seems to have had an erratic love life. And yeah, sailing from Cythera to Lesbos means that she sold sex on Aphrodite's island Cyprus, Cythera, but that she also had female lovers on Sappho's island Lesbos. Margot is mentioned in lists of Moulin Rouge performers, but that's pretty much it as far as info goes. Demi-siphon, half siphon, a water holder, like a bistro accessory, like this one on the side of the photo. I don't know if this is like a sexual innuendo or something, but the half part of her nickname is because she was 145 centimeters tall, 4.9 feet. Let's see what Maurice Delsol writes. The first part of this text contains references to other Moulin Rouge dancers, like the ant and the grasshopper, Miss Fourmi and Sauterelle. And it says Demi-siphon tours France to earn money, and that she danced and sang in her acts. Microscopic, but very well made, she was truly priceless when she faced her friend Tour Eiffel, between whose legs she passed without bending down. The death of her companion, Tour Eiffel, who fell victim to the terrible consumption, tuberculosis, that struck that year and opened such wide breaches in the ranks of the battalion of mad heroines of pleasure, had left Demi-siphon inconsolable and had even made her somewhat disgusted with the splits. Demi-Siphon went to Reims recently to reveal the prestige of her talents to the provinces. She danced, and, intoxicated by the applause, she attempted to perform a split so fast and perfect that her bones miserably cracked upon touching the ground. Demi-Siphon did not get up. She died in battle, I dare not say on the field of honor. I wish the split had died with Demi-Siphon, and since the fate of that unfortunate girl was thus sealed, I regret that the accident, instead of occurring in Reims, did not occur at one of our promenade concerts among the stunned and unamused crowd that circles around the followers of Jeanne Fès. So her real name was Jeanne Fès, and she was also known as Marcel Mignon. As so often with newspapers, a fantastic and unbelievable story turns out to be not true. Jeanne Fès died in the Beaujon Hospital in Paris from a gynecological infection, which was either caused by a sexually transmitted disease, a miscarriage, or an illegal abortion, or some such. And when she was admitted to the hospital, she did not declare her actual profession, which was dancer, but she put lyrical artist, as this was considered less shameful. La Macarona, a dancer, recounts that last year at this time, a friend called Tour Eiffel died. She danced, contrasting in height with Demi-Siphon. This girl, it is true, had tuberculosis, but the splits finished her off. As for the rowdy girl known as Tour Eiffel, she died from the after effects of one of those Mardi Gras parades where half-naked women are put on floats. The poor girl, who was quite pretty, died from the cold she caught in a torrential downpour. So according to legend, both Demi-Siphon and Tour Eiffel died after doing the splits. Or Tour Eiffel died after appearing half-naked in the rain in Paris in February, while ill. It is impossible to die from performing the splits. It was a float or cortege of similar style that Tour Eiffel is said to have been on, drenched in rain while half-naked and consumptuous. A small, unattractive woman, sullen and insipid, with her pince-nez glasses perched on her pointed nose, the air of a schoolgirl on a jaunt, she redeemed her small stature with her swaying hips. Her name was Jeanne Fès. Being only half of everything, half woman, half dancer, and half girl, she had been nicknamed Demi-Siphon. While performing the splits, according to the rules, she split in two. She died from her injury. Also killed by her eccentricities was Tour Eiffel, a tall, tasteless floozy who stood opposite Demi-Siphon. This is so judgmental of their looks and mannerisms. Oh my goddess. It hurts to read it. Well, half dancer means that she also sang. And half woman, half girl, that means that she was short and young. And yeah, the myth of her dying while or after performing the splits is busted. Killed by her eccentricities means that Tour Eiffel died from dancing, as can was sometimes referred to as eccentric dancing or quadrille excentrique. Georges Montorgueil, the writer, is a pseudonym for Octave Lebesgue, who was a man with facial features as interesting as a wet rag. He was equipped with eyes which were small and dry-looking, which he matched with a rather bland beard. He chronicled the life of the 1890s Montmartre in several books. Moving on to Étoile filante, shooting star. She is mentioned as a student of Nini Patte, a dancer who had a can-can school, whom I will talk more about later. Étoile Filante was Nini Patte-l'air's first student. Quite pretty, she has now become a little too fat to play with the lightness that once suited her name so well. Étoile has transformed into a full moon, which incidentally has not failed to bring her success among the astronomers in love with this star. Still playing, let us hasten to add, with a skill that reveals in her the excellent principles of. Yeah, so here's some vintage fat shaming in action. By the way, Maurice Del Sol is unknown. His only work, it seems, was Paris Suter. I haven't found any info on him or any photos. There's quite a lot of photos of Étoile Filante. There are more photos than actual info. She, as well as many other dancers, posed for nude photographs, which I can only hope was consensual. With some images, there's only the fact that they include the name in the lower corner, which makes me able to identify them. At least until I find photos in higher resolution. So yeah, the key is nickname plus good resolution. As we shall soon see, men were also dancing can-can. It's amusing how the man to the right is pointing to Étoile Filante's groin. And yeah, some pantaloons/underwear was open in the groin. Not always, though. Here, for the sake of understanding a method to make group photos in this era, collage. So they've taken images like the one of Étoile Filante and pasted into this group image with other stars. Each individual is taken from an individual photo of them. This group photo promotes the dance hall Jardin de Paris, but the venue looks like Moulin Rouge. Both venues had the same owner. Églantine. The name means wild rose. She is mentioned as a student of Nini Patte, and Églantine said that she studied can-can 3 years together with Nini, and that she also studied in New York. Églantine is mentioned in a newspaper article as Mademoiselle Mallet, a student of Nini, together with some other dancers. The Moulin Rouge manager Seidler sued Nini's dance company for performing elsewhere than the Moulin Rouge. Églantine went to London together with Lagolu in 1896. Églantine said that she was an Anglophile, someone who loves English things. Lagolu, on the other hand, not so much. They performed together at Shaftesbury Theatre, together with two other dancers who might be Xiao Kao and Rose de Mai. Here's some quotes on Églantine. The harsh exercises which put her, Églantine, in a state to hold for a whole minute, without the help of her hands, the tip of her foot at the height of her forehead. Églantine came next, a tall, strong, handsome, dignified-looking girl, with dark eyes and eyebrows. She's in her second year of Nini's Can-Can school, and has been with Nini in America. Églantine, dark and slender, was very graceful. Églantine had her own dance troupe together with Jane Avril, Gazelle, and Cleopatra. They went to London in 1896 to perform at Palace Theatre. And if you think that this photo is somewhat familiar, it could be because Toulouse-Lautrec used it to create this poster. It was commissioned by Jane Avril to promote their performance in London. The yellow color signaled risque and edgy things. Gazelle. Yeah, gazelle, like the deer animal. She's mentioned as a student of Nini Patte, and her surname is listed as Mademoiselle Hanon in the article on the trial where the Moulin Rouge boss Seidler sued Nini's troupe because, yeah, they had performed elsewhere than the Moulin Rouge. It's not clear who won. At least I don't think it is clear. Gazelle was part of Eglantine's dance troupe who went to London. And while there was a quarrel between the dancers. Eglantine obtained, as I did, a great success which earned us both the recriminations and the jealous anger of our two companions, Cleopatra and Gazelle. The story goes that Gazelle and Cleopatra weren't as skilled and appreciated as Jane Avril and Eglantine. Photos like the left one are a delight because they helped me identify photos such as the right one. I believe that she was nicknamed Gazelle because she jumped around in a similar manner to the animal. And suddenly, I found some more photos of Gazelle. Look at that colorized dress. The pink plus green. She looks a bit like a bonbon. And the colorized versions, I feel they help a lot with understanding just how colorful the clothes actually were. And here's two more photos of Gazelle. Pink and green clothing again. Perhaps that was her trademark colors. That is a shepherdess costume, by the way, which alludes to a romanticized pastoral version of rural life. It was a popular style, and other dancers also sported shepherdess costumes. Cleopatra, like the Egyptian queen. Very little is known about her, and the photo is also very obscured by shadows, so we really can't see her face. But there is two quotes. Cleopatra, an emulator of Rayon d'Or for her lingerie. And Cleopatra, who does not keep a pet serpent in her bosom. The only other info about her is the quarrel she and Gazelle had with Jane Avril and Eglantine in London. According to Jane Avril, Cleopatra and Gazelle, they were less experienced dancers and became jealous of the other two. They are said to have started a fight which had to be handled by the manager of Palace Theatre. La Glue, the glue. Her name could come from the book La Glue from 1881. The character in the book, La Glue, is a desirable, mysterious Parisian woman. But her name also means bird lime, like a glue which is used for hunting birds. The dancer La Glue started her career sometime in the 1880s, as we can see from this newspaper article from 1887. She's one of four dancers who dance the quadrille in black suits and as women of the world. La Glue, a famous Shahut woman, but today she is only a pale reflection of what she was 15 years ago, at the time of her first successes at the Élysée Montmartre. It was then that an Englishman, captivated by the charms of her calves, kidnapped her and offered her a small hotel in London with horses and carriages. But the fogs of the Thames caught her by the throat. La Glue freed herself from the Englishman and returned at full speed to fill the Élysée Montmartre. So she went to live with an Englishman in London sometime before 1893, but thereafter returned to Paris. Here are two articles which mention her. First, dancing at the Jardin de Paris, and second, her being one of the stars of the Moulin Rouge. The two venues had the same owners. The real madcap ball is at the Moulin Rouge, when the quadrille, led by Rayon d'Or or La Glue, unleashes this hysteroepilepsy, which female clowns translate into shameless flights of petticoats. The species are classified by group. A sign names the sauterelle or the glue, la montfromage or colibri, 4 by 4. You are welcome to observe them. This is an interesting note which helps to paint a picture of how the dances were performed and how people knew who was who from a sign that said their names. Yeah, I must brag a little. This photo below wasn't marked with a name like Lou or anything, but I was able to recognize her. She's wearing the same dress with the zigzag pattern as in the above image. Lily, also spelled Lily with two L's. She is perhaps the same Lily as the one who's nicknamed Lily Jambe en l'air, Lily leg in the air, or legs. Or they could be two different performers. It's funny how I managed to find the minuscule Lily in the crowd of a group photo, which I will get back to later. One wonders why so many images of her survive but almost no info. But we have this from Maurice Del Sol. Miss Lily, a ravishing, disarticulated doll, a gymnast who, in the circuses of Paris and the café concerts of the provinces, had her moments of success and a good comrade, and all in a very down-to-earth manner, loves to have fun, and even more her profession, which provides her with enough to live freely and independently. Yeah, the translations are sometimes a bit crude. But yeah, interesting. She was a gymnast, can dancer, and circus performer. A bit like the performer Shao Kao, whom I will make a separate presentation on. And if we believe the text, her profession gave her freedom and independence. Here's a woman who's labeled Lily Jambe en l'air. I do wonder if she is the same as Lily, but I can't really tell. The legs in the air in the nickname is, of course, as you can see, referring to the flexibility needed in the can-can. But it's also an obvious reference to another legs in the air type of activity. Yes, sex. I have very little info on her. She appears in this photo collection, and the woman who is appearing together with her is also in it. But that's kind of it in terms of information. And the men are completely unknown. Miss Rigolette. Rigolette was a type of head covering, but her nickname is most likely to do with rigolo, meaning joker or funny. Miss Rigolette and her students. The Japanese girl, the torpedo, cascade, moulinette, bout en train, etc. So she was one of three women who taught the can-can. The other two were Nini Patte and Grille de Go. In a text about can-can stars from earlier than Lagolu's time, we find this. Rigolette, the Empress double, who was destined to die like a lost dog in the ditches of the fortifications, was known in the brothels as the Countess of Matignon, after a lover who had loved in her the fiery hair of the fallen sovereign. The Empress double means that she looked a bit like Empress Eugenie, wife of Napoleon III. Women who solicited at fortresses, military buildings, were on the bottom of the sex trade ladder. The ditches were in proximity of the fortresses, and this is where women could end up after a robbery, or simply as dead. According to this text, if this is the correct Rigolette even, this was her fate. But yeah, we can never be sure. Now we move on to male can-can dancers. Yes, they were a thing. In this era, they appeared as partners to the ladies, often in the form of the quadrille, two pairs who battle danced one another. This is Le Lancé, the slim one. In most sources where these photos appear, he's labeled as Valentin Le Dessaussé, because Valentin was Lagolu's most famous dance partner. But this photo proves that this is in fact the dancer Le Lancé. Here's a comparison of the only photo which is likely Valentin. The Toulouse-Lautrec print does show Valentin, and he's just not the same man as Le Lancé. But I had to make enhanced comparisons though, just to confirm to myself that the man to the left just isn't the same. Identification is not easy. Very little is known about Le Lancé. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing it correct. He did dance with with Lagolu though, as pictured here, and also with dancers Laglu and Sauterelle, which we will see further ahead. He appears as the only man in this postcard with other famous female Moulin Rouge dancers, stars like Margot, Rayon d'Or, Eglantine, and Lagolu, who appears twice for some reason. I am guessing that this is him. I'm not sure, but the hairstyle is similar. I'll get back to this photo later. This artwork seems to depict Le Lancé, and we do see Valentin Le Dessaussé, in the top hat, dancing with Lagolu and an unknown woman. There's no trace of what happened to Le Lancé after his dance career, or where he came from. And here's something I am very proud of. I have found a likely identity of the man to the right, Louis d'Or. Yeah, and the detail that he wears glasses is something I recently discovered. 90% of the times, this photo says that the man is Valentin Le Dessaussé, because he appears alongside Lagolu and he looks a bit like Valentin. But look at this drawing. The man in the top hat is easily recognizable as the Valentin Le Dessaussé. And here it says Valentin danced together with Louis d'Or, a man who has a mustache and who wore matching checkered pants and shirt. He's very likely the man in the photo. My other main argument that the checkered man isn't Valentin is that Valentin was never depicted as having had a mustache. Guy Bollard. He's mentioned as the dance partner of several of the leading dancers of the Moulin Rouge, such as Grey de Go, Rayon d'Or, and Sauterelle. But he's almost forgotten today. I found this sheet music from 1890 called I, Guy Bollard, and it is a tune about him. It starts with I am the one who launched Grey de Go, Rayon d'Or, Lagolu, Sauterelle. They are well maintained. There was also a Guibol, who was a lady, Mademoiselle Guibol. The nickname literally means skillful legs. And these two photos, to the left and right, could be of Guy Bollard, but I'm not sure. The ears and the eyebrows seems to match, but yeah, it's hard to know for sure. Again, this looks like it could be the same man who is giving someone a piggyback ride. The photo to the right says that it's of Diamant, the lady, and one of the men is Brin de Amour. The brown-haired man looks like he's the same man who poses with Étoile Filante. Here we have a mention of Guy Bollard with fellow male dancer Vol Avant. But artwork like this one can't be trusted for identification purposes. The faces of the ladies don't match the photos of them at all. They are stylized and not drawn to be identifiable. Here's four unknown persons performing an eccentric quadrille. And they're men, and two of them are in drag, but I cannot identify them. Here's something interesting. I had these men noted as Gibolard and Volavant for a long time, since those two were frequently mentioned as dance partners of Sauterelle and Rayon d'Or. But a note on the back of this photo gave me their actual nicknames: Fend-l'air and Merlatti. Fend-l'air means break the air. Not in that way. That was Le Petoman, the fart maniac's job. Break the air as in moving quickly through it. Merlatti was his surname, likely, or a surname he took as an artist name. Who is a good question. If I follow the logic of the names of the ladies from the back of the photo, this should be correct, but I could be wrong. In this colorized version of the photo, we can see that their jackets were red, which we can also see in this artwork by Pierre Vidal, which depicts the two high-kicking men in red jackets at the Moulin Rouge. They could of course be others than Fend-l'air and Merlatti, of course. Newspaper articles such as this one helps a lot with confirming that the nicknames are noted on the photos are correct and correctly spelled. This is the only newspaper article I've found which mentions Les Lancers. He's teamed up with Merlatti, Rayon d'Or and Sauterelle. This time the men wore black suits, not red. Now we return to this collage photo of can-can performers. The men are encircled. The likely Fend-l'air is appearing 2 times. And yeah, I must confess I am quite proud of having identified them, as I've never seen them identified anywhere, meaning never ever during these past 23 years of studying in Moulin Rouge performers have I encountered their names. This is one of the photos which was used to create the collage photo which I showed previously. Fend-l'air, or Merlatti, the guy who has the lovely Jane Avril on his back, looks very, I comply with the task I am given. Or, it's a hard job, but someone's gotta do it. The man who likely is Le Lancé looks more ready for mischief. And I gotta say, it looks like Jane Avril has some sort of stick in her hand, ready to play the 2 strings like a violin. The revitalized can-can brought a degree of fame to Fend-l'air, Gibolard, and Brin d'Amour, partners and counterparts of the fashionable can-can dancers. These young men, their reign over, ended up in a discreet bourgeois life. They are married and have families. Here we have an unknown man together with a woman who's only known by her nickname, Helene. Another unknown man, labeled as Valentin Le Dessaussé. We can't see his profile, which was Valentin's most characteristic trait. The photo of the likely Valentin Le Dessaussé isn't similar to our agile man with the suit. And Valentin was a man in his 50s in 1890s, and the suit man is photographed in 1893. He certainly does not look like he was in his 50s. This collection includes some photos of unknown men. It was really popular to do the man riding pose. Yeah, again, a photo of a man mounted by a woman, Margot in this case. This man might be Brin d'Amour or someone else. Margot's dress is very cool. The well-known dancers Guy Bollard, La Comète, Vol-Avant, Fend-l'air, Paul Apat, Fall du Fer, who were true artists, as skilled as the Cladoche of the Second Empire, were disgusted by receiving so little money and stopped dancing. True or not, they quit because they were paid so little. Or they married and entered bourgeois life. They did fade into obscurity, more than the women, but here I have given them some recognition. Blanchette and Gigolo seems to have been a duo. I was thinking maybe they were an actual couple off stage, but I don't think so. I haven't heard of any of the dancers who ended up together, but we also don't know what happened to the majority of these people. And yeah, gigolo, it means male escort, sex worker, paid company, usually to a lady. I haven't found anything which points to the men being presented as sexually available as many of the ladies. But perhaps that was the case, and perhaps some of the men catered to a male clientele. Montmartre was a haven for queer sexualities and identities. Who knows? Perhaps Blanchette and Gigolo were a case of the oh so common friendship between a woman and a gay man. Blanchette, still young, with small blinking eyes and a perverse face of cadaverous pallor, befitting her name. Always dressed in the latest fashion, she no longer associates with women and now surrounds herself with young men properly dressed in black, as if they were escorting her to her final resting place. After passing through Cythera and Lesbos, she seems to have settled in Gomorrah. One could say of her that she makes love in despair. Mr. Maurice Delsol, what to say? He seems to insinuate that Blanchette is a very depraved woman. Gomorrah is one of two cities in the Bible which were destroyed as punishment for being too wicked. So Blanchette was depraved, wicked, sickly pale, and fashionable. I do hope that she didn't make love in despair, but well, that could of course be true. Violetta, Violet, and Lisette. There's almost no info on these ladies. Violetta/Violette is on Tremolada's list of Moulin Rouge performers. She might have taken or gotten the nickname from the book about the lady with the camellias, Violetta. They might have been a duo, as well as individual performers. It's hard to say why some are photographed together and others aren't. I did find out that this is Lisette, and the picture on the far right is likely her, in the group photo promoting Jardin de Paris. Sometimes the only thing which links a performer to the Moulin Rouge are these stereos photos with the Red Mill logo. Here we have Gazelle returning with Kaduja. She is very unknown, but the photo to the right is said to depict her. In a newspaper article from the 1930s, dancer Jane Avril describes that Kaduja fought with the dancer La Goulue on a bridge around the corner from the Moulin Rouge. In other sources, Avril says that La Goulue fought the dancer Aisha on the bridge. Perhaps she fought both of them. This is Sapphire Stone. She is mentioned as one of the students of Nini Patte. She liked to sit down. Because here she is again, sitting down. There's so little info on some that I have to make stuff up. This photo has been labeled as being of Mon Fromage, but that's not true. This is Saphir. She also liked standing up and holding her leg up. And I love her style, this dark striped dress with see-through-ish material. There is no mention of her anywhere except as a student of Nini. And this lady, Hirondelle, the swallow bird. Even less info exists about her. The photo on the right has been labeled as being of Tour Eiffel. There's two other photographs of Hirondelle. She's very unknown. But her nickname has double meanings, and it's a working class reference. Swallow birds who fly from place to place, just like temporary workers or streetwalkers. Here we have a lady who's very unknown as well. Bleuette, little spark, blue or blueberry. Could also mean a romantic girl. But there is, in fact, this. Bleuette, also very young, with a carefree air, romps around with more goodwill than principles. She still needs a long internship before she can shine like a star. She usually dances with her friend Fin du siècle, with whom, after work, she goes to frolic in the clubs of Montmartre, where the Aminches hold their sessions, while waiting for the latter to hold them in return. So Aminche means something like friends or pals. To the right is a photo of her dance partner and friend Fin du siècle. Perhaps they were more than friends and dance partners. Given that there are some photos of her, perhaps she got to shine like a star. Her colorized outfit is very cute, I must say. The green goes very well with the gold and yellow, and that cute and risque pink satin ribbon visible on the pantalon. Funny thing, when I found this stereo photo, the text said the dancer's name is Don Lil Doué. Then I thought to myself, Don Lil Doué? Hold on a second. That's not French, that's Danish. Den lille due, the little dove, equals pigeonette. She's mentioned as a student of Nini. I really like this outfit, and I wonder what color it was. Pigeonette, another kid, more funny than pretty, barely 16 years old, is already walking with dignity in the footsteps of her elders, stars of the revelry. Passers-by, you will see her again, without suspecting it, at the salon, her superb body of a fallen angel, carved in marble. Pigeonette is, in fact, like some of her comrades, a model in her spare time, and she has inspired the chisel of more than one renowned sculptor. So here Maurice Del Sol tells us that many of the dancers were also artists' models, like Pigeonette apparently was. It's impossible to find a sculpture depicting her since the artists usually didn't name their work after the model, and we don't know her actual name either. Artist models had a similar kind of reputation as can-can dancers, or any dancer for that matter. So it makes sense that someone like Pigeonette would also pose for artwork. Both fields of work ruined women's reputation. But to go and view the artwork in question, to admire the naked muse in the painting, even for a woman to do so, was respectable. But the woman who had undressed and posed was considered a hoe. Diamant, diamond, possibly also known as diamant noir, black diamond, or they were two different persons. She appears in Tremolada's list and seems to have performed duo with the dancer Shah Kao, also known as Shahut Kao. She was a female clown, and the term diamanteuse and pierreuse means diamond lady and female clown, but both words also refer to sex workers. I believe Diamant and Shao Kao performed duo and connoted this with their nicknames. Diamant also did some man riding with Brand Amour and one other man. That's it as far as info on her goes. Fauvette, that means warbler, a small bird. It also means little beast. She is mentioned along with other dancers in Guide de Plaisir à Paris. And also here, La Goulue handpicked Fauvette. Unfortunately, while in Nice, the two women had an argument. After sharing a bed with La Goulue up to that point, Fauvette absconded with a man at the casino, taking some of La Goule's valuables with her. End quote. This didn't affect La Goule's feelings for Fauvette really, as she simply let her go. And years later, in around 1898, she called on Fauvette to dance the quadrille at Casino de Paris. La Goulue is said to have dressed Fauvette in a pretty little suit. Is it this one? It's very pretty. I like the square fabric and the cute hat. And perhaps I'll sound a bit stupid right now, but sometimes I think we associate this style to older ladies, like our grandmothers or great grandmothers, which to me at least can cover the fact that these ladies could be rather vicious or downright criminal, like Fauvette and her theft of La Goule's belongings. Fauvette is described as a tall, dark-haired girl with suggestive steps. On the fines board of a Montmartre concert ball, Miss Shah-Ukau and Fauvette, 8 days suspension for being rude to Nini Patte, their teacher. No comment, right? This is one of the many cases of, I know these photos is of a woman called Helene, but there is no info on her. Her nickname could come from the operetta La Belle Hélène by Offenbach. The photo says it's of Helene. It has the logo for the Moulin Rouge. She was a dancer at the venue. End of information. This is Serpollet, which means wild thyme. I believe that she was also known as the Great Nana la Serpollet. Serpollet, probably so named because she feeds the rabbits that are placed in her care. So she's nicknamed Wild Thyme, which rabbits do enjoy very much. But my interpretation of what rabbits alludes to is loose women, sex workers, as brothels were sometimes called Le Clapier, the rabbit farm. Why? Well, what do rabbits do? Unless they are neutered. Yeah, that. Serpollet likely shared an apartment with some women who did sex work, and I interpret it from the text that she fed them with herself, that some of them were her lovers. I could be wrong. Perhaps she used her Moulin Rouge salary to make soup for them. Or she had an actual rabbit farm. I mean, La Goulue did have a little allotment garden. Nah, it probably has to do with sex. In 1899, La Goulue opens her own menagerie, a caravan show with wild animals. She hosts a celebration in the caravan with the Great Nana Serpollet, La Mom La Crotte and Cri-Cri, 250 francs worth of champagne and liqueur. We had a super supper. But the peace didn't last long. The Great Nana put her leg on the table, crossed the table on one leg. She was very big. They did a quadrille and the party got complaints because the musicians played until 2 in the morning. Paid every 2 weeks, they are required to sign an attendance sheet upon arrival. In case of absence, their day's pay is deducted. The stars earn 250, 300, 400 and 500 francs. That's what La Goulue, La Macarona, Serpollet, Sauterelle, Claire de Lune, La Tonkinoise and La Glue earn. So yeah, here's an article describing the salaries of some of the top tier dancers. And no sick leave money for these ladies. So a seamstress earned 2 francs per day in 1890. A housemaid earned 1.5, like 50 francs per day. The dancers earned a good amount of money. La Torpille, the torpedo. She's one of the women who had a dancing career prior to the opening of the Moulin Rouge. And she's mentioned as a student of Nini and Miss Rigolette. This mentions her as a celebrity who did the grand écart, the splits. And here she is photographed performing it. Mom Fromage is actually one of the Can-Can ladies who will get her own presentation because there is enough info about her. But I wanted to include her here to show that I've been struggling to identify her, because she and some of the other dancers look very similar. And in some books and articles, photos of Serpollet, La Torpille, and unknown women are labeled as being of Mon Fromage. It sure isn't easy to identify them. So these 2 photos are said to be of Marie-Anne Weber, one of the sisters of the famous dancer La Goulue. But I'm not sure. Marie-Anne died in 1883. This lady is nicknamed Étoile d'Or, Golden Star. She looks very young, and I have no info on her. I wonder about that hat. I usually gush over how pretty the clothes are, but this one looks like a bread basket. Here we have Étoile d'Or with coquelicot, which means a shade of red or a poppy flower. I have no more info on them. This is Mimi Jambe en l'air. Mimi, which means cute, and leg in the air. She only appears in this photograph, and I haven't found her mentioned anywhere else. Cascade. I've seen her mislabeled as La Goulue. She's mentioned as a student of Miss Rigolette. That's pretty much it. Pluie d'Or and Tapageuse. Golden Rain and Noisy. Perhaps they were a duo. The nickname Noisy probably alludes to the fact that the Shahoot/Can-Can dancing was rather noisy, with the dancers shrieking and screaming while performing. I believe this is them, Pluie d'Or and Tapageuse, with 2 unknown men who wears what looks like matador outfits. The photo is labeled as Scène excentrique du Moulin Rouge. Eccentric scene from the Moulin Rouge. I suspect that this is them as well. Pluie d'Or and Tapageuse. Folle jambe. Crazy leg. The nickname alludes to the fact that the dance was seen as quite unhinged and crazy looking. There's no info on her. Turquoise, like the color. No info on her. Bout en train, the life of the party, the energetic one. No info on her. Aside from student of Miss Rigolette. Berlurette. Like, this is the only 2 traces of her. This one photo and this ad where she is headlining, like, service where you can send in to get photos of the Moulin Rouge performers. It sure makes you wonder what happened to her. Like, why is she so forgotten? She has a very lovely presence in this photo, I think. And the nickname, it alludes to a game similar to tag, blind man's bluff, or blindebook in Scandinavian languages. It alludes to playfulness, like both to come and play with her, and that there's some like mischievousness in the game. Kind of like you cover your eyes, and maybe she's still there when you take her hands off from my eyes. Or maybe she's gone, or some such. Fin de siècle, a newcomer and one of the prettiest troublemakers of the Moulin. A very pretty young girl with a charming face as fresh as a rosebud. She dances as much for fun as to fulfill the obligations of her commitment. She will move from the lower classes to the demi-monde if she is lucky enough to be seriously taken under the wing of a specialist who believes in her talent. Yeah, Maurice, I agree. She's very pretty. In this photo, she reminds me of some French actress, actually. She doesn't look very happy, though, and the pose is rather not sensual. And she looks super young. Her nickname literally means end of the century, but fin du siècle was also a kind of mood, like the concept Y2K, an end of an era that holds promises and fears. This photo. I love, love, love the details on her bodies. And I see a little star as well as some other ornaments. And there's some really pretty bows on the side of her knees with those beautifully adorned stockings. But yeah, the text. The wings of a specialist. That means that, yeah, it's a protector, a man who will pay her expenses and promote her in return for, yeah, sex and company. The only other info I have on her is her friendship with fellow dancer Bleuette. Antonia and Defer. I have no clue who they were. There's only this photo. Same with this lady. Chiffonette. No clue on who she was. No info. It's only this photo. The nickname alludes to chiffon, the fabric. And a chiffonnier means rag picker, the person who collects and sells textile rags. They existed in and around Montmartre. And another practically unknown and blurry lady, Folichonnette, which means small and mischievous. This is a mention of brise du soir, which means evening breeze. She's mentioned together with other Moulin Rouge dancers. She was a student of Nini, and she attended La Goulou's wedding in 1900. This photo likely depicts Rose de Mai, May Rose, together with La Goulou, Églantine, and possibly Xiao Cao, for a performance in London in 1896. Mademoiselle Bouton d'Or, which means buttercup flower or golden button. I believe it's her to the left in the duo photo, with a lady who is unknown, but that lady was a student of Nini. We will get to her later. This photo is of Berthe, so that could be Berthe Zigzag, perhaps, because she's mentioned in quotes like this one. And I interpret the nickname to have to do with her mode of dancing, like zigzagging back and forth. But it's a guess only. This lady often shows up in articles on Can-Can and Toulouse-Lautrec. And she's been labeled as anyone from La Goulou to Montfromage. The text that she is writing on the wall mentions the name Berthe several times. So perhaps that is her name or her nickname. Perhaps she was a can-can dancer, perhaps not. Kita. No clue on who she was. No info. There's only these photos. Bianca. No clue who she was. No info, only this photo. She's wearing a costume which looks like it's for a carnival or for some sort of masked ball occasion. Madeleine Bastille. That was an omnibus line which went between Madeleine and Bastille in Paris. There could be some innuendo at play here, like I'm not familiar with it, but perhaps that she had lovers from on every stop of the Madeleine Bastille. Now I sound like Maurice Delsol. I have no clue who she was. No info, only this photo. And again, it looks like she's wearing a costume, like for a masked ball. The info on the back of this card says that this is Louisa. But who was Louisa? No info anywhere. This is the only trace of her. Sometimes I find photos like this one, which is in such low resolution that I can't identify anyone or read all the names that are noted in the frame. It might say myosotis, and it does say paqueret, and both mean types of flowers. And here are paqueret, camellia, rose pompon, flowers enough to fill a whole boat with flowers. At the Moulin Rouge, it's 11 o'clock, and it is in this den of pleasure that the Vachalcade is to breathe her last. 3 times the procession circles the immense hall of the Moulin Rouge, and as it passes, a wild crowd surges forward. Soon the parade breaks up. At the tables, groups of black suits now offer a variety of drinks to the sequined and disheveled young women. And around the stage where Mrs. Cricri, Paqueret, and La Môme Fromage perform. So this is the after party to a festival called the Vachalcade in Montmartre, which was similar to the Mardi Gras carnival parade. This is a bit of a mystery. There seems to have been more than one lady with the name or nickname Nini Patte. I've seen the topless top hat photo many times, and it's been marked as being of Nini Patte. But she is not the same Nini that is to the left, which had a can-can school. But she is indeed the same lady as the one on the far left. Whoever she was, this woman had fantastic style. Cute round earrings, and I love the blouse, the fabric, like the details of the lace from the elbow and down. And I must have those stockings. They're very, very, very cool. I must do a presentation where all I do is gush over can-can dancers' stockings. No historic context, just wow. And here's another photo from the same occasion. Now we move on to the Nini who actually had a can-can school. Let's look at some students of Nini Patte. Here is a list of collected nicknames which are dancers noted as having attended Nini's classes. There were most likely other dancers taking courses as well. Here's a photo of Nini's can-can school with names, which goes to show how difficult identification is. Because they're all wrong. All but one of them. La Macarona is the only correct one. So Nini's name is there, but she's labeled Grille de Go. And Jane Avril is completely wrong. She didn't even think that Nini's can-can school was a school, but that it was more of an exploitation system, as we shall see. Now a closer look at some of the students. This girl looks so young. She could be a young Saphir, but I am not sure. And this lady, I don't even have a guess. I don't have photos of all of her students, so this could be Emeraude, Cigarette, or Mouche d'Or. All I know about this lady is that she definitely is not Jane Avril. I was able to identify her on this photo above though. She is the same lady as the other 2 photos. The photo is from this series, where Nini poses with at least 1, probably 2, of her students. And I do believe that the woman accompanying her is Bouton d'Or. She is not mentioned in any lists of students of Nini. This could be either Nini's can-can troupe or school, or a group of ladies whom she danced with. The middle lady could be Xiao Kao, who is listed as a student who got suspended together with Fauvet for being rude to Nini, their teacher. This text speaks of Nini's student Mimosa, whose real name was Berthe Carouet. She lived with Nini and served as her maid, as well as her student. But Mimosa claimed that Nini never paid her, and she left. As a result of this desertion, Nini saw her quadrille disintegrate and was forced to terminate her engagement with the Casino de Paris. She filed a complaint with the public prosecutor, claiming that Mimosa had stolen various items from her. Monsieur Pechard, police commissioner for the Monet district, found Mimosa yesterday in a room at a furnished hotel on Rue Monsieur le Prince, which she shared with a friend named Mouche d'Or. She protested the accusation of theft brought against her by Nini Patte, and the search carried out by Mr. Pechard did not, in fact, lead to the discovery of any objects belonging to the complainant, but only spoons, forks, etc. stolen from various cafes. An investigation was nevertheless opened, and Mimosa was kept at the disposal of the courts. And thereafter I have no info on what happened to her. But it seems that Jane Avril was right in her memoir, that Nini did use dancers as maids, and that there was something wrong with the way that she was treating them. Now, some examples of Toulouse-Lautrec's depictions of lesser-known dancers. Here we have a depiction of Emma Said Ben Mohammed, who performed under the nickname Aisha. She is likely the same Aisha who is referred to in Jane Avril's memoirs. Aisha and La Goulue fought each other on the Caulaincourt Bridge, just around the corner from the Moulin Rouge. Aisha won. They had to stop her from throwing La Goulue over the bridge and down to Montmartre Cemetery, where La Goulue is buried, by the way. A few years later, she's seen in this painting playing the tambourine. La Goulue had opened up a booth where she performed belly dancing. Aisha doesn't look very happy, I must say. The quarrel between Aisha and La Goulue is captured in John Huston's film Moulin Rouge from 1952. It's possible that Aisha didn't perform the can-can, but did other dancers or performances. Emma Said Ben Mohammed had Berber/Algerian and Italian origins. She had a daughter by the name Line, and Line had a daughter whom she named Edith Piaf. If Emma with the tambourine and Aisha is the same woman, that means that Edith Piaf's grandmother danced at the Moulin Rouge. Gabrielle, a tall and robust girl with an open and welcoming face, was a former dancer with the Ferigier troupe, where she first learned the ropes. Extremely sensitive, she was quite unhappy during the time when peacock feathers were in vogue. I'm actually not 100% sure that this text is about the correct Gabrielle, and I don't know what peacock feathers means in this context. Anyway, Gabrielle was depicted by Toulouse-Lautrec, and she performed at the Moulin Rouge. Do note that her hair is cut short in this portrait. A woman with her hair cut short in this era was a sign of being queer or lesbian. Gabrielle was the lover of fellow dancer Xiao Kao, also spelled Shahut Kao. And in the portrait from 1891, she wears high lesbian fashion, a white blouse and a black jacket with puffy sleeves. And she's hatless. Toulouse-Lautrec used her as a model in some of his paintings from brothels, where she is shown together with female lovers. May Milton, an English dancer. It might have been her real name, or it was her nickname or stage name. She was a serio-comic performer, so she was not a can-can dancer really. So serio-comic meant that she danced and sang and did quick costume changes for acts in a rapid succession. Such acts were often childish and included double entendres and had sexual undertones. May Milton was the inseparable friend of dancer Jane Avril. They were close friends, very close friends. And speculation is that they sailed from Cythera to Lesbos, if you know what I mean. I might do a separate video on May Milton. Casque d'Or, or Golden Helmet. This painting is often mislabeled as being of La Goulue because of the hairdo. But this hairdo was immensely popular, partly because of La Goulue. Sources differ as to if Amélie Elie, a celebrity sex worker who was nicknamed Casque d'Or, and the can-can dancer Casque d'Or were the same person. Amélie Elie was around 13 years old when this painting was made. Toulouse-Lautrec did make people look older in his paintings, and Elie did walk the streets at that age. But I do believe they are two different women with the same nickname, but I'm not sure. Here we have a painting from the Moulin Rouge with a dancer who looks like she's ready to enter the dance floor. And who is she? Should I take a guess? Serpolette? Mom fromage? My guess is that this woman in green is Gabrielle, but I could be wrong. Toulouse-Lautrec did depict her often. He liked to paint women who were lesbians. The back of this painting reads, Valentin Le Dessaussé instructs the new ones. Valentin, the slim man with the top hat, is teaching a new dancer, the woman with the red stockings, the trade of the Shahoot. And who is she? Many automatically have her as La Goulue, but the hairstyle doesn't match. She could be almost anyone presented in this lecture. Now we're getting into unknown territory. Here I do have a guess. Mimi, Jambes en l'air, and Margot? Not sure at all. Here we have a dancer at the Moulin Rouge from a guidebook on Parisian pleasures from 1899. I have never seen this photo anywhere else, and I have no guesses really as to who she is. Here's an unknown lady who is labeled a mistress of ceremonies. She has the coolest clothing ever. There's a mill on her cane, together with a little horse. And there's a mill motif on her hat, on her bosom, and on the side of her dress. The outfit must have served as an inspiration for a garment in the Moulin Rouge film from 2001. This lady probably had some sort of MC role, or she was the leader of a procession from the Moulin Rouge. She could actually be from the period after 1903, though. This lady is often mislabeled as Grille de Go or Mom fromage. She is neither of them. I've been staring at this mystery lady for the past 20 plus years. Who is she? She's at a table together with, likely with La Goulue, and Toulouse-Lautrec, and an unknown man. Most likely at the Moulin de la Galette. The mystery remains unsolved. This woman has a very recognizable face, but these are the only two images I have of her. This lady is so blurry that no identification can be made. The photo is too low quality. If it didn't say Le Moulin Rouge, it wouldn't even be in this collection. She could be almost anyone, really. Better resolution would probably make her identifiable. And here is this unknown lady. My guess is that she's accompanied by bout en train, but I have only one photo of her, so that could be wrong. These types of photos catered to the idea and the reality that the women did have romantic relations with one another. This unknown woman looks so uncomfortable or like poseless. She's just showing off them pantaloons. Makes me wonder if she really wanted to be photographed. An unknown lady, an old photo I found in a magazine from the 1950s, on nostalgia for the turn of the century, La Belle Époque. These two photos depict the same lady, but I don't know her nickname. I have found about 120 nicknames that I can't pin to a photo, so she could be Cigarette, Marie Blanchisseuse, or Fleur de Pêche, or someone completely different. She looks so familiar and also generic, if I may say so without sounding like Maurice Delsol or Montague. She has no feature which make her easy to identify in other photos. And these two, they look like persons I've seen while researching, but I just can't say who they could be. My only vague guess is Antonia and Defer. My guess is that the man is Guy Boulard, and the woman could be Gazelle or Serpolette. Hard to see when the face is so blurry and it's dotted with what I think is pink cheeks. This could be Brice du Soir, I suppose, but it could also be someone else. This lady could be the other unknown lady, but they could also be two women who just looks kind of samey. An unknown lady with very cool checkered stockings. I so wish I could interview them. Like, I want to know more about their lives. This lady might not even be a can-can dancer. She looks more like dressed for a carnival or masked ball. Here's an elegant, unknown can-can lady. Again, the stockings. Look at them. I mean, okay, I really have to make that stockings presentation. These photos would have to represent all the times they dressed up for cortege or these grandes redoutes, for carnival or masked balls. Therefore, it's even harder to identify them. But the person stepping out from the carriage chair is the exquisite dancer Jane Avril, Our Lady of the Dance. She is the only one I've been able to identify, though. And here's another example of costumes and dress up. It looks like Romani or Spanish-ish style. And the low quality makes them even harder to actually see. Now we're getting into group images, where there's one or more unidentified persons. This troupe performed in New York in 1892 as Quadrille Fin du Siècle. They are Serpolette, Risette, Claire de Lune, and Follette. But the only one I can pinpoint is Serpolette. The others, I don't know who is who. I don't have photos of them. This is a case of, well, can I be sure that the individuals are correctly labeled? Not with this low quality, I can't. Here the women played the part of men, it seems, as they are wearing suits. Here we have 4 recognizable stars of the Moulin Rouge, and one which makes me go, huh? Who are you? Yeah, with this one, it's hard to guess. But like my guess is Margot, but I'm not sure. Also, it's much more difficult when they are like a bit cartoony. Same with this one. Here's four easily recognizable stars. Mom Fromage, La Goulue, Rayon d'Or, and La Sauterelle, who is depicted twice for some reason. And then there's this one which, yeah, I have absolutely no clue who she is. Since Nini Patte isn't in the picture, I would say it could be her, but it also doesn't look like her. The names are from the listing which came with this photo, and I'm not sure if that is correct. As well, I have no other photos of Casque d'Or. And she's also listed as Hirondelle in another photo, or on a site where this photo appears. Yeah, like this. Same photo, it's just a bit clearer. And it is from the Moulin Rouge. And the year says that it's 1895, but I'm not sure about that either. La Goulue is in the photo, and she left the venue a year earlier. Could be, of course, before taken before her departure. Another group image where they all look cartoony. And yeah, there's one unknown lady, and my guess is that the lady next to Rayon d'Or is Margot because of the hairdo. A text on the photo says something like Fesse de la Mon Fromage, buttocks of Mon Fromage. So I suppose she is the one doing coupe de cul, showing off her bum. These photos are fantastic. They are collages made up of individual photos. And the photo shows the inside of the Moulin Rouge, its busy ballroom dance floor, and it features some of its stars. The ones I recognize are La Goulue, Margot with her striped dress, and Lili in the very back to the left. And this is the left side of the photo collage of Moulin Rouge's Grand Ballroom. And here again is a mini version of Lili. And there's so many question marks. I haven't been able to pin down any of these ladies. But the encircled are some ladies, a quartet who appears in the marketing photo of Jardin de Paris. When I first saw them, they reminded me of the Parisian sisters. But I thought to myself, their several acts must have looked a bit like them. So some context. The Parisian sisters were a group of actual sisters from Denmark who performed in Paris and elsewhere. And they wore baby-like clothing, and they sang and danced. And their most famous act, they revealed that they had live kittens in their underwear. You can see the little cat head sticking out in their groin area in the photo. Yep, the word pussy was a double entendre back then as well. And then I found this photo connected to the Moulin Rouge of male performers in drag as Le Barrisonnerie. So I interpret this as a parody of the Parisian sisters. The four women performers are either a sort of wink to the Parisian sisters, or they were part of a genre of performers known as chorus girls, or la corbeille, the basket, a kind of backdrop for other acts. These performers didn't sing or dance, they only posed. And the public was free to shout insults at them. So they were like a kind of sexy backdrop. It seems that the Moulin Rouge had its own chorus girl group, or that this was some similar quartet who performed in childlike clothing. I haven't found any info on them, the individuals or the group. But they are likely the troupe featured in this film. The only, as far as I know, film clip of Moulin Rouge performers from the period 1889 to 1903. I'm hoping that there could be some other clips in existence. So that's it. Those are all the photos I have found as of present and identified or not identified. And here's the list of nicknames, and I will not read it out loud. At first, I had actually planned to do so, but this has been such a gargantuan undertaking that I wonder who will sit through all of this. So you'll just have to pause and read the names yourselves. The ones I have marked in bold and underlined are the ones that I have photos of, or I believe I have photos of. It's around 60 names. And I'm not 100% sure that all of these names were can dancers. Perhaps some were belly dancers or singers. The entire list includes around 203 nicknames. Many of them have to do with flowers or variations of mischievousness, fun times, or precious things like gemstones, or animals like ant and gazelle. There's so many which I don't have any photos of. I wonder what Jeanne Bernichon looked like, or Hortense upside down. Perhaps I'll do another presentation where I show some info about the unphotographed ones, like Gervais Mom Tata. There's so much to present and so little time. Yeah, I wonder how many will actually sit through this entire presentation. Not even I have done it. I mean, as you can see, I recorded this in sessions due to not wanting to lose my mind. La Mom Anisette. There were so many moms, like kids or young ones. And flowers, daisy and mimosa tree. I really want to know why and how all of them received their nicknames. Tête de mort, skull. What did she look like? Aside from having had brown hair. And ténébreuse, the dark one, as in mysterious and shady. I don't know if golden rain alludes to anything. Sultana might have been a belly dancer, and I can assure you that La Tonkinoise was not from northern Vietnam. She was more likely a girl from Clichy named Marie. Is this the end of the list? It seems so. Now, the final page of the presentation are my sources and thank yous. Many nicknames means many sources. Yeah, this has been a gargantuan undertaking, but someone had to do it. And that was all I had on this subject for now. I did my best to get all the facts right and to tell interesting stories. Et malheureusement, je ne parle pas français. Je suis désolée.